This is the Meaning Business Podcast, your go-to source for business tips, advice, growth, and exit strategies, hosted by Coudrey and Peter Spinda. Each episode, we bring you real stories, expert insights, and practical advice to help you succeed in today's market. Let's dive in.
This might sound counterintuitive. This might sound controversial, but we want you, the business owner, to learn how to deceive, how to cheat, how to manipulate, and how to lie.
Hello, John. How you doing today? You mailed in my company a postcard a few weeks back requesting information on penny stocks that had huge upside potential with very little downside risk. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I may have said so.
Okay, great. Well, reason for the call today, John, is something just came across my desk, John. It is perhaps the best thing I've seen in the last 6 months. If you have 60 seconds, I'd like to share the idea with you. You got a minute? Name of the company, Aerotine International. It is a cutting-edge, high-tech firm out of the Midwest awaiting imminent patent approval on a next generation of radar detectors that have both huge military and civilian applications. Now, right now, John, the stock trades over the counter at 10 cents a share. And by the way, John, our analysts indicate it could go a heck of a lot higher than that. Your profit on a mere $6,000 investment would be upwards of $60,000.
Jesus, that's my mortgage, man.
Exactly, you could pay off your mortgage.
This stock will pay off my house.
John, one thing I can promise you, even in this market, is that I never ask my clients to judge me on my winners. I ask them to judge me on my losers because I have so few. And in the case of Aerotine, based on every technical factor out there, John, we are looking at a grand slam home run.
Okay, let's do it. I'll do $4,000.
4,000, that'd be 40,000 shares, John. Let me lock in that trade right now and get back to you with my secretary with an exact confirmation. Sound good, John? Great. Hey, John, thank you for your vote of confidence, and welcome to the Investors Center.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
I want those shares.
I don't want those shares. I've seen that factory.
Absolutely. So that sets the scene, and hopefully people are understanding why we started this podcast the way that we did. The reason we need to understand how to cheat, how to lie, how to be manipulative, and how to deceive is because by understanding that, we can actually avoid having that happen to us. We can recognize when that's happening to us. You know, that scenario there where you receive a random phone call and someone's selling something that just sounds so too good to be true.
Mm.
You know, you've got the gullibility factor, you've got the pressure factor. If that person on the other end of the line knew how to understand that, you know, they're probably being lied to, manipulated, they'd be asking questions. They'd be asking for evidence and proof and, you know, seeking further information in order to make an informed decision.
Mm.
I mean, how many times in business have we heard stories of people having things happen to them because someone's cheated, someone's lied, someone's manipulated, not just in business, in life as well.
Mm.
So this topic that we want to explore today is called dark psychology. We've got positive psychology where we talk about positive mindset and all of those sort of things. But there is actually the dark side. There's the dark side of how we can use tactics to manipulate people.
Yeah, of course.
And the manipulation doesn't have to be an immediate, quick manipulation that happens in the moment like it did just there in that example. The manipulation could happen over periods of years. People playing out the long game, think politics.
Yeah.
Business and politics collide over many, many years.
Yeah, politics is a very current one and bizarre because it just seems that logic and rationale does not win you votes. It's handouts and saying the wrong thing that wins or loses your votes.
Absolutely.
And I think what I've just started to feel is if you can understand what dark psychology is, how it works, how you can use it for yourself, how you can look for people using it on you, it's a massive benefit.
Absolutely. And the thing with it is that the dark can actually turn into light. So there's a book called The 48 Laws of Power, and that's actually the book that opened my eyes to this concept of dark psychology. And to be really honest with you, when I first started listening to that book, I've got it on Audible, and when I first started listening to it, I actually felt really dirty. I was sitting in the car thinking to myself, what on earth did I just buy? Like, is this even legal? That was the question I was thinking in my mind.
Mm.
Because in that book, they talk about 48 powers, 48 levers or tactics that you can use to manipulate, to cheat, to lie. It actually teaches you how to cheat and lie. In fact, in the US, they banned the books. They certainly banned them out of jail. So when someone's in late, they can't access it.
Okay.
And it's a very, very controversial book because it talks about
Yeah.
a controversial subject.
Yeah.
But when you read up on why the author wrote this book, because I wanted to understand why would anyone do this, it makes sense. His argument is simple. If you understand that, then you can understand how to use it in a well, first of all, you understand when someone's actually trying to do it to you.
Yeah.
But importantly, you then understand, okay, well, how do you convert that to light psychology, which is all the positive? How do you manipulate in a way that's actually in everyone's interest? Because sometimes, if we think children, for example, children push back. I don't want to eat my food. I don't want to eat the salad. I don't want to do this or that.
There's psychology present in every interaction with a child.
Yeah. And so there's a bit of positive manipulation when
Yeah.
you're doing that because you know that that's in their best interest.
Yeah.
It's just their kids. They
Yeah,
do
exactly.
what kids do. They're going to push.
Exactly. And we all, consciously or unconsciously, use some form of psychology to get things, whether they're valuable or not valuable, for people to try and get upgrades on a plane or to get preferential treatment or to get that kid to have a bath or to eat their vegetables. There's all sorts of psychology. Don't know whether it's all, but it's interesting, this term dark psychology, because it's definitely tactical thinking that you
It is.
employ. I don't know if all of it's, obviously the cheating and lying part's there, but there's also just some understanding of how you can use questions or statements to get people to do what you want them to do.
Absolutely. And that example that we just listened to or watched with Jordan Belfort out of Wolf of Wall Street, that's a prime example of where words and language, and not just the words and language, but the tonality that he used. He adjusted the tonality. At one point, he went really quiet. Then he got exuberant. And in the end, what does he say? Welcome to the Investors Club. So quite exuberant. And the body language opens up as well. Obviously, it's over the phone, but the body language translates into tone itself.
Yeah.
So it's really powerful using that as a tactic.
And we need to be conscious of this. And there's something there. It was in his tonality goes, and by the way, whatever the guy's name was, pause. Welcome to the Investors Club, or whatever it was. And even that pause was a powerful tool.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not a big fan of that movie, and there's several reasons. I won't go into it here, but
Lamborghini.
I love the cars. But there is actually another scene that I wanted to play. I'm not going to because it's full of swearing. It's just too crass. We can share the link, and it's actually a really interesting link for those that don't mind the crassness and don't mind the swearing, because in it, what Jordan does is it's a scene where he's teaching his salespeople, the young ones, the rookies, how to sell using his technique. His technique is called the linear sales technique. And what he did, he actually didn't have success in the early days. So when he started Stratton Oakton in the first little while, they didn't have much success. And so what he did was he went back and he refined the sales process, and he came up with this linear technique. It's a technique of basically mapping out all the different combinations of what a person could say as a rebuttal, and then having the rebuttal right in front of you. So you don't think as a salesperson, it's rote learning.
Yes.
Bruce says this, I do this. If someone says this, I do this. And you use aggression, you use tone, and you use pause and those sort of things in order to get what you want.
Yeah.
And fascinating, interesting scene, worthwhile listening to. Again, like I said, quite crass, a lot of swearing in it. But if you can put that aside, very, very interesting lessons.
I think that's quite realistic, though. It would have been exactly how they would have spoken. So
absolutely.
In context, really.
In researching for this podcast, I also found a recording talking about Jordan Belfort and what he did, and his former solicitor is actually in there being interviewed and talking about it, and he talks about the sales model, and it's all true. They built a factory of graduates just out of high school, zero life experience. They were the best individuals because what he was doing was manipulating those individuals to do what he wanted them to do,
his way,
which was his way. And then he ended up manipulating the stock market. So there's a famous shoe designer, Steve Madden.
Yep.
Fairly certain it was Steve Madden. And what hardly anyone knew was that he owned 80-something% of Steve Madden's shares when they launched. And so he got his boiler room to sell all these shares, pumped it up. He dumped it, made an absolute truckload of money. So moving on from that, I guess the point here is, psychology can be used for good and bad. We use it in every day in our interactions. But we just need to be aware. Now, this dark side can actually come from individuals within a business. It can come from team members who want to get their way. It can come from, and quite often it comes in bureaucratic organizations, particularly in government. That's why in politics, quite often you see the manipulation and the lying and the cheating type tactics where people want to get to the top. And their belief is that the way to get to the top is that you've got to play the game. If it's playing the game or climbing the corporate ladder. Well, that's playing the game.
Exactly right. And there's a lot of psychology in that game. And in fact, the whole game is psychological.
Yep, absolutely. So it's an important topic. Now, there's another video that we're just going to play in a second. And what I wanted to highlight with this particular video is that not only is it important to understand the dark side, but it's also important to understand that reality isn't always what you're told. And sometimes the things that you believe or sometimes the things that you think are real are actually not true. And so it's really important to understand that quite often if we're making a complex decision, you're better off pausing for a moment and trying to get more information, asking more questions, getting more details, building a deeper picture, and maybe even challenging your own assumptions. Because there's an assumption that can be made in this video that we're going to show in a second. Because sometimes it's our own assumption to go against ourselves. And it's kind of like our dark side going against ourselves, where we're led down the wrong path by our own mind because we're believing our internal discourse as opposed to challenging ourselves.
So just before we get to that, I think in what we've just spoken about and what's coming, one of the things is that quite often emotion causes us to lose rational thinking and reason, and we do things impulsively and we think impulsively and we make impulsive decisions. So in business, if you can take emotion away, because it is business, it's just business, and we've got to treat it as business. And if we do that like a robot and we think about business and we think about the psychology and we act rationally, we'll make better decisions and we'll work better with people, whether they be staff or customers.
100%. And what you just said ties in perfectly to this. Because that is actually the one of the core messages.
So should we have a look?
Yep. Press play, please.
Okay.
All right. Now, who can explain Newton's method and how you use it?
You can use it to solve nonlinear equations.
That's impressive. That's really good. I mean, I'm very impressed by that, especially since my class is called Nonlinear Equations. All right, now somebody tell me something I don't already know. Anyone? Bueller. Anyone? Bueller.
Newton stole it.
I'm sorry?
Newton stole it. Joseph Raphson published the same method 50 years earlier. If the start value is too far removed from true zero, then it fails.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Ben Campbell.
Ben. So Ben Campbell suggests that Joseph Raphson was the original author of this method. Well, if that's the case, then why didn't he get any credit? Well, for one thing, Newton had a better publicist. And for another, after 1700, we know very little about Raphson other than the fact that he discovered the Kabbalah about 300 years before Madonna. All right, now, let's give Ben a chance for some extra credit, shall we? We're going to call this the game show host problem, all right? Ben, suppose you're on a game show, and you are given a chance to choose from 3 different doors, all right? Now, behind one of the doors is a new car. Behind the other 2, goats. Which door would you choose, Ben?
Door number 1.
Door number 1. Ben chooses door number 1. All right, now, the game show host, who, by the way, knows what's behind all the other doors, decides to open another door. Let's say he chooses door number 3, behind which sits a goat. Now, Ben, game show host comes up to you and says, Ben, do you want to stay with door number 1 or go with door number 2? Now, is it in your interest to switch your choice?
Yeah.
Well, wait. Remember, the host knows where the car is. So how do you know he's not playing a trick on you, trying to use reverse psychology to get you to pick a goat?
Well, I wouldn't really care. I mean, my answer's based on statistics, based on variable change.
Variable change, but he just asked you a simple question.
Yeah, but she changed everything.
Enlighten us.
Well, when I was originally asked to choose a door, I had a 33.3% chance of choosing right. But after he opens one of the doors and then reoffers me the choice, it's now 66.7% if I choose to switch. So, yeah, I'll take door number 2, and thank you for the extra 33.3%.
Exactly. People, remember, if you don't know which door to open, always account for variable change. Now, see, most people wouldn't take the switch out of paranoia, fear, emotions.
to their plan.
But Mr. Campbell, he kept emotions aside and let simple math get his ass into a brand new car. Which is better than that goat you've been driving around campus. All right, everybody. That's the end of the day. Thank you very much. Your graded
Thanks,
papers
Shay.
are down here at the end. You can pick them up on...
So you hit it on the head before.
Right, yeah. I haven't seen that.
You know,
so-
emotion out of the way, and let's use logic. So first of all, like you said, we've got to use logic in business. And when you get a phone call selling shares, selling anything, and it sounds too good to be true, or when you have a situation that just comes left of field and it just sounds just doesn't resonate in the gut, maybe pause and look at, okay, well, what is the truth behind the
Yeah,
situation? Maybe
yeah.
analyze it a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's become really clear to me lately that, you know, it is business, it's not personal, and we need to treat business as business. And the people that do that successfully are far more successful. And if people get emotional and wound up about all sorts of things and act too erratically or hastily, they suffer for it. So having that logical thinking and logical approach is really important. Something that I just thought of when I was watching that was an interview I read just probably 2 days ago. I don't even know his name. The guy was a boss of Microsoft, and we used to have a trick for when he employed people. Have you heard about this?
No.
And he used to, I think it was something like this. I'm thinking of a number between 0 and 100. If you can guess it, you know, see if you can guess it. And he would say, but it works like this. For the first, if you get it in the first guess, I'll pay you $5. Second guess, $2. Third guess, nothing. Fourth guess, you pay me $2. Fifth guess, you pay me.
Okay.
And do you know how this works?
No.
So
Heard of it.
okay. So some people would go, oh yeah, okay, I'll take it up and try and guess, and other people wouldn't. But he found that this was a great way to, just like that, to find people who had logical thinking, because apparently if you on the numbers or the odds, you're going to end up paying him every time. So you might go, 50 halfway, and then you'll split it 25 or 75 if he says higher or lower. And it'll take you at least 4 guesses to get there, by which point in time you're costing yourself money. And I think he was looking for people who could rationally look at things and go, no, that's a bad deal, we're not going ahead. So if you took the challenge, he didn't really want you. If you could see that it was just a losing proposition, he wouldn't take you. But a lot of people in an emotional situation personally, you know, this big boss is interviewing him for a job. They want to impress him. They still want to see if they can guess it. They want to play the game. And they didn't let logic prevail.
So it's in a way staying true to yourself as well. You know, if you can sense, you can feel like, okay, this is not going to be good for me, irrespective of the situation, sometimes you are better off putting your foot down, like in that case, and saying, you know what, there's no benefit in there for.
It's hard to do that though, isn't it?
Incredibly difficult.
Yeah, you got pressure on you, social or other pressures on you, want to be liked pressure. So it's hard to push back.
Absolutely.
But
like you can see it in business where, you know, you might have, let's say you're a producer, right? Let's say, I don't know, you farm lettuce for argument's sake, right? And you've just won a contract with one of the big retail stores. What are they going to do? They're going to try and dictate the terms. They're going to try and dictate everything.
Exactly.
Now, part of the emotion is initially it's probably elation. You go, oh my God, I can't believe it. We've won a contract that's worth $2 million a year. Wow, fantastic. Right. Great. You're on this high. And then you see the contract, and then you realize that, hang on a second, what you discussed initially isn't quite how it's going to work, because in the contract, there's all these little terms that add up to potentially that loss where you're actually not going to get ahead.
Exactly.
And so then you got to sit back and you go, okay, well, do you take it because you want the brand as part of your customer base to be able to say to others, hey, Bruce, yeah, I've got this,
We
this
supply
is my
Woolies
brand.
or whatever.
That's right. Or do you push back and you say, well, actually, you know what, Woolworths, I'll sell to you, but only on these terms. If you don't come along the journey with me, that's it. I'm not going to work
It's a
with you.
tough position to be in.
Very tough decision.
And a lot of people would go, oh, you know what? I'll take the deal because I can negotiate with them later.
Yep.
Most people that screw up think, oh, that doesn't apply to me, or I can get around that, or I'll talk my way out of that. And that's not the case quite often. But just back to the dark psychology thing. So I think what that Microsoft guy was doing was employing dark psychology.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's all cheating or lying.
But he's using it in a positive way.
Correct, exactly. And I don't think it's all cheating or lying. There's this sort of, from what I've read, one thing that you can do is you sort of throw something out there which you know is wrong, hoping the person will correct you and tell you what you need to know.
Yep.
So I don't consider that to be cheating or lying. That's manipulating.
Yep.
It's a conscious way of talking to people.
And that's why in the 48 laws, it's not just about the cheating and lying. It's the other types of laws. It's the pretending to be someone that you're not. So the gaslighting situation. It can be hyperinflating realities and facts and things like that.
Yeah.
So hyperinflating, we see this in the tech space right now, where you have a lot of innovation happening, a lot of companies at the moment launching new products, particularly around AI, emerging technologies.
It's everywhere.
It's hyperinflated, Bruce. I mean, the reality is that most of these technologies are unproven. They're not justifiable just yet in most businesses or most instances, and they don't work as effectively as they tout them to work. So this is where we need to be able to cut through the noise as business owners and go, okay, well, what is the reality? How do we make decisions that benefit us? So we've got to be aware of, okay, in the case of technology, yes, we've got to be aware of the technologies. And yes, in many cases, we should play with them, but we should choose the right ones for the right reason, not because a vendor's pushing us, or not because everyone in the industry is saying you've got to jump on board. Forget everyone else.
That's right. It's a hard position to be in. But again, taking emotion away, thinking logically, you're not going to get everything right anyway.
No, you're not.
Whatever you do, you know, there are odds in what we do. For example, in that example you just played, he still might have got it wrong.
Yeah.
Because he only had a 66% chance.
That's right.
It wasn't 100%.
That's right.
So he improved his odds, but it wasn't guaranteed.
No, and that's like business. I mean, there's no guarantees. You can start 10 businesses and you can succeed with one and then fail with 9.
Exactly.
There's nothing there. But there is a formula, and the formula really goes back to the fundamentals. It's going back to your strategy, your planning, building the right foundations, looking at things from a non-emotional lens perspective as much as possible, using logic as much as possible. And then the other part of it is continuous education. So part of the message here around dark psychology is that go and continuously educate yourself, whether it's about the industry, whether it's about global affairs, innovation, technology, whatever it might be. Never stop learning, because it's through the process of learning that you can actually build the skills, the knowledge that you don't even realize you're using on a day-to-day basis, but they're actually helping you get ahead. Part of the reason why, we've seen this, where you might have a tradie, let's say a plumber starts the business, and next thing you know, 20 years goes by and they've got 15 vans, 30 people working for them, but they still struggle on a day-to-day basis, and they still don't have a valuable business. And part of the reason is because they haven't continued their self-education.
No.
They're very good at the trade side, and they've been successful in building the business as a result of, of their
They're running it like a job, not a business.
That's right. But they don't actually have a true business because they're not business-minded.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's quite often the reality, where you stop the education piece, and then, of course, it's easy to hoodwink an uneducated person quite often.
Yeah, that's right. If you're sneaky enough, you can probably hoodwink anyone. God, I tell you where I'm seeing at the moment, a lot of I'm getting into a touchy subject here. A lot of families manipulating situations for inheritance and wills and favoritism with aging parents. That's a really bad thing. But yeah, it's common for sure. And emotion is one of those things that enables people, the parents, to make bad decisions too.
It's a sad situation. So I've got someone close to me that works in aged care, and they were telling me of a story not long ago about someone they're caring for and how that person's family member is really trying to manipulate the will and trying to manipulate things so that the inheritance goes in their corner. And there's other, brother and another sister involved, and you think, what a sad world that we live in. What a sad family situation where you have a sister doing that to the mum, to the brother, to the other sister.
In many ways, inheritance can be a blessing and a curse. Inheritance, in my opinion, has helped America to become the wealthy nation that it is. But it's also can be such a bad thing. You almost wonder if we're better off not having it.
Oh, look, this is a conversation we had a little while ago about immigrants, coming over into Australia. And there's a lot of debate at the moment about immigration and population numbers and things like that. But if we look across the board, how many wealthy people are actually immigrants? Like
Most. Yeah.
truly, and so they bring with them that energy, that enthusiasm, that desire to do something different.
Yeah.
They're constantly pushing the boundaries.
Yeah. Well, they've got nothing to fall back on either. They've got to make it.
That's it. You've got to make it. And so they've allowed themselves to unlock these capabilities in their mind because they've got to do it.
Got no option.
Whereas if you're, things are going well, and again, it goes back to in business quite often. And there's one person that pops in my mind at the moment where their business is humming and they're doing well. And as a result, they've just stopped being an entrepreneur and they're just sort of, doing the thing and money's coming in. But I can see the writing on the wall for that business in the next few years because things are changing. And so the market, the dark psychology, white psychology, whatever you want to call the positive psychology is against them because the market is continuously competitive.
Yeah.
It's never going to stop just because your business stops.
No, that's right. So I don't think dark psychology is all bad. It's just a manipulative way of using psychology to your own advantage, right?
Correct. It's a bad thing if you use it to gain an advantage that causes something negative to the other person.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very powerful tool if you can use it in a way where you have a win-win situation and you get to move forward in a positive way. Like I said before, the prime example I can give you is the young kids, the child that doesn't want to eat their broccoli, the manipulation to get them to eat it. Well, one can say, well, manipulation is bad, but really, if it means that the child's eaten their broccoli, the outcome is that they're going to eat better food, and so therefore their body is going to function better. So is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So the end result is
Exactly.
So going back to how we started this conversation, we do want you to learn about manipulation and cheating and lying and those sort of tactics. And in fact, highly, highly recommend read the book, The 48 Laws of Power, and we'll put the link.
Read or listen to it.
Read or listen to it. Now, when I say read, I tend to listen to most of my books. And you'll find, like, you might feel a bit dirty initially. I felt quite sort of dirty initially listening to it because I thought, oh, this just doesn't sit well with me because I'm not like that. But I understand it now. And now that I listen to it, I'm like, all right, I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to re-listen to it and just pick up some things that I can learn and use in my daily discourse as I go about doing my business.
There's things that you can read about or learn about, like war or, that are horrible and they make you feel uncomfortable. But it's better to know about it than not know about
Absolutely.
it. So what do you want to be, ignorant or uncomfortable?
Exactly.
I think I'd rather be fully informed.
100% agree with you. So be informed, open your mind, and never stop learning.
Yeah. Well, that was great. Sounds like a lot for me to study and continue to work on.
And by the way, like I said earlier, we'll put a link to the to that interesting South scene in Wolf of Wall Street. Watch it. It's it's interesting just to see the power plays. It's interesting to see how people are taught manipulation and then go out and actually conduct manipulation.
Yeah. What an amazing life that guy must have had.
Oh, that's definitely a conversation for another day.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Pete. That was great.
Thanks, Bruce. See ya.